Welcome to the Donna Seebo Show. Donna is an international mental practitioner, psychic, award-winning author, counselor, speaker, teacher, and radio television talk show personality. She brings to the airwaves talented people from around the world who share their insights and experiences with you, the listening audience. Now, let's join Donna.
Hello and welcome. Oh my goodness, the new year. It is tomorrow evening. We are going to be having celebration after celebration. Millions of people around the world that are, actually I should say billions, are going to be celebrating the brand new year. Well, this evening we have a very special guest. And for those of you that are regular listeners, Craig Meriwether was going to be my guest on Tuesday evening. We were not able to connect for that show, and he graciously has... Well, he's going to be with me this evening, and I wanted to give you a little bit of information. Craig has this phenomenal book called Past Lives Guidebook, Discover the Healing Power of Past Life Regression. When I started reading this book, and I was going through it, I found it was a lot more information than just about past lives. This is a research project. It's almost like an encyclopedia of information, engaging cultures from around the world, people's experiences. Oh, there's just so much in it. I am really looking forward to talking with Craig Meriwether, and I hope you'll enjoy the conversation as much as I'm looking forward to having that conversation with Craig Meriwether. Craig, welcome to the show.
Donna, it's so good to talk with you. We've talked a bit, here and there, and it's always fun a conversation with you, so I've been looking forward to this.
Well, I am too. Craig, I'm really curious, and I often ask authors when they produce something, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, how it is that you evolve into becoming a researcher, how it is that you yourself became so fascinated with past life regression, but not just that. It is with the cultures around the world, the different religions, faiths around the world. This is something that I just love about today's environment because we can communicate and find out about other people, other places, other circumstances, situations that most of us wouldn't even have a hope or a prayer of knowing about, and that's what our technology enables us to do. How did you get started in becoming interested in hypnotherapy, and then how did the past life situation evolve for you? Give us a little bit of your background.
Yeah, well, it's a bit of a story, so I'll try to compress it into something a bit manageable over the last almost 60 years of my life. But I grew up in the Episcopal Church, and from the 6th grade to the 12th grade, I went to a Baptist-run school. So my life was very much ingrained in religion and the church. And, I think the Episcopal Church was just a church we went to because it was up the street from our house, and you could walk to it, and there's about 3 or 4 blocks. Sure, if it was Methodist or Lutheran, we would have been Methodist or Lutheran. But I attended the Episcopal Church, and I actually quite like the Episcopal Church. If people aren't too familiar with it, it's sort of Catholicism light. And they have the robes and the candles and the Eucharist and a lot of ritual and ceremony involved in that church service. And I really liked it. There's something, comfortable about it for me. But there's also this other aspect of being more of the evangelical teachings of the Baptist church at the school I went to. So it's almost headbutting kind of aspects of growing up in those two different kind of religions. And when I turned 18, graduated high school, as often does, your friends scatter, and Episcopal Church and wasn't that interesting because all my friends had left and gone off to college in various places, and of course not in high school anymore. And so these influences weren't there anymore, and I eventually ended up going to Santa Cruz, California with my then girlfriend, now wife. And now this is the 80s, and of course no internet back then, and very just hard to find information in terms of more, uh, things I was curious about growing up. You had to find little paperback books and things like that, and watch Leonard Nimoy's In Search of, and all that kind of fun stuff. But I was always curious about things maybe outside the norm. And when I moved to Santa Cruz, that's up about Central California-ish. It's west of Silicon Valley on the beach, Cupertino, Mountain View, and then south of San Francisco. So it was this cliched melting pot of all sorts of different cultures and people from around the world. I didn't experience that when I grew up in San Diego, California. And so this is all very new to me. And the world was actually starting to open up a little bit with the music I was interested in. Artists like Peter Gabriel and Paul Simon were releasing more world music influenced albums. And so my world slowly started to widen. And when I moved to Santa Cruz, this beautiful, small little beach town, there's so much culture to absorb, and festivals on the weekends. And you can take this Zen meditation class. You take this martial arts class, and you could you learn about the music, and you learn about other people, and they become your friends, and you find out more about their philosophies and their theories about life and death, as well as their spirituality. And so slowly, like a slow drip, my world widened. At the same time, I was kind of dealing with a lot of anxiety and depression in my life. And as the 1990s turned into the 2000s, the internet starts getting out there with our 14.4 modems that took 12 hours to download a picture. But you had forums and you had discussion groups, and a lot of information was coming out there, especially around depression, because those SSRI drugs like Prozac were just coming out in the late 1990s. So the discussion opened up about depression. You can actually talk about it. And, growing up as a teenager in the 80s, it's, not something you kind of wanted to talk about. You kept to yourself, and to a certain extent, I just figured, well, this is the way it's going to be, or this is the way life is, or this is the way everybody is. And it was really the birth of my son in the year 2000, where it's like, I really got to get my act together. And so as I learned more, I studied more, I researched more, one of the things that kept coming up in terms of changing mindset, changing feeling state within your body, healing old trauma, was hypnotherapy. You'd see articles or books or blog posts or, go to workshops or something, and they would give the 5 best things you can do to change your life. And one of them was always hypnotherapy. So as I started seeing this over and over again from people I was studying and reading, I thought, well, it might be something to try. And I found somebody to work with, and I did a lot of great healing work using the power of my own subconscious mind. And it just fascinated me. And what I also found out, that the more I learned, the more I read, the more I researched, was that not only can hypnotherapy be used to access subconscious mind for healing and for growth, but you can also access certain aspects of your spiritual life. And so all these things that I was interested about spirituality and certain rituals around spirituality and religion and healing through consciousness, and starting to learn more about reincarnation and past lives, it all kind of fit together with hypnotherapy. And I found this wonderful school, the Hypnotherapy Academy of America, and a school is going on right now. It's been around for about 40 years. And one aspect of it was that they had this extraordinarily deep, intensive training on past life regression and natal regression and spirit world exploration and connecting with spirit guides. But that was module 5. That was the last 2 weeks of this 10-week education and intensive training. And you first learned about the clinical side of hypnotherapy, how you can use it for releasing and resolving trauma, hurt and pain and anger and other aspects of feelings that may be, blocking you from moving forward into a more joyful and peaceful life. as well as the medical hypnosis part of this, of learning about pain control and healing acceleration. We did that first. And so this is 500 hours of training and education. This is Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And this is a school you actually went to. You sat in a classroom with other people, and you learned about these techniques and the science behind it, and maybe saw a demonstration at the front of class, and then you broke up into small groups and worked with each other, and you learned about healing. And then with that experience and that foundation, you learned about past life regression. So it was quite extraordinary training on top of all the other continuing education. And as I continue to learn and grow, I still have my skeptical side, and I want to learn and understand more about, consciousness and accessing memory and all this information coming out about consciousness being non-local, meaning it's not kind of imprisoned at the skull. And what does that mean? And computer simulation theory in terms of reality and multiverse and the holographic universe theory and all these different things, and how can they all somehow connect together? And through all my life experience and my own curiosity and my own skepticism, to a certain extent, is where I find myself now, and working with people, whether it's a more clinical side of this, working with maybe issues of the current life where they've experienced trauma and hurt and pain, or on a more spiritual side, as well as just my own curiosity about the science and history behind it, therefore the Past Lives Guidebook. So it's quite fun journey. We were talking before we got on the air here about there's so much out there still. There's going to probably be a volume 2 at some point in terms of the book. There's so much interesting stuff out there.
Well, I know I have had personal experiences with past life situations, and when I had the experiences, interestingly enough, it involved a time frame that another country, another era. Mm-hmm. And so often with people, when they have, you might say, a subconscious awareness that they carry into their life, in every person's life, there are certain patternings. There are patternings where they will like or extremely dislike something, and there is nothing really logical about it. It's just there. In fact, if you were to question them, they'd say, I don't know, this is just something I know. It has nothing to do with their family. It has nothing to do with, quote unquote, their genetic background. It is outside the box of what is considered, well, I'll use the word normal, whatever that is. I haven't figured that one out yet. That is something that I find so intriguing, because when I had, and I think of right now, a particular experience I had, it was about another individual that was very close with me. And I thought, what in the world? I can remember asking this question over and over again. What is this person's problem? What is their reason for these attitudes that they've got? Where did it come from? So I can remember trying to think, gee whiz, maybe it's something that happened in their childhood. But I had an experience that showed me it was not their childhood. What it was, it had to do with another culture, another life patterning. And they were literally, in this life experience, still carrying forward certain patternings that they had even then. But it was much less. But I can remember thinking, my goodness, I've been given an insight. Now I know why this person is this way. I don't even have to be concerned about it, because now I know how to deal with it. And it's so intriguing when you have the experience. And that is something that many times people that are skeptics, maybe it's because of their religion or their belief systems, or maybe they've never had an experience like an individual's gone through. But boy, I've heard enough stories from enough people that when they have this past life window open up for them, it often is a shock. It's just something that's so far removed from anything they have any association with let's say in the very present, but yet it still has an influence on them. It's as if, I'll call it the universal mind of self, has all of this recorded in our internal libraries, and we've just figured, just don't know how to access it. And that's where hypnotherapy and past life regression become partners. Am I saying it in the right way?
Yeah, no, I think that's an amazing way to explain it, because it's a very deep topic, and there's so many rabbit holes, deep rabbit holes to go down. But that aspect of life where you have certain interests in maybe different parts of the world or different kinds of music, and to a certain extent, some of that's attributable to just growing up. Maybe somebody likes country music or classical or jazz or rock because that's what they heard in the home or from their brother and sister growing up. But to a certain aspect, like myself, for example, Craig Meriwether, you don't get more United Kingdom than that name. Scottish and English, and pretty much like 90% of my heritage, my DNA, is focused on the United Kingdom and Ireland and Scotland and Wales and England, and my other 10% is France and Germany. And yet I have an extraordinary curiosity and interest in the Middle East and North Africa and India. And that's not my heritage. That's not my culture. I didn't grow up knowing anybody from those areas of the world. And yet I feel comfortable. I'm curious about it. I want to know more about it. Not so much South America, not so much other parts of Europe or Australia, but these very specific parts of the world that just fascinate me, and I want to learn more about and listen to the music and why. It has nothing to do with my ancestry, nothing to do with my heritage or how I grew up, and could that be linked to a past life that is still somehow connected in some way, shape, or form? Maybe just because it was so powerful, it's kind of spilled over, or maybe there's some connection that needs to be resolved or healed, or for another aspect of it may be like, I live up in the mountains of Arizona, right near Sedona, and if I may have a deep fear of the ocean, like I was born and raised here, and why might I grow up with that fear, or still have that fear as an adult? If I've never experienced the ocean, seen the ocean, maybe I've never even seen a movie or a picture of the ocean, why would I have this fear of the ocean of something I've never seen or understood? Possibly could it be some sort of connection to a past life that means resolution or healing? And so, like you say, there's just so many aspects to this are extraordinarily fascinating and interesting. And, one aspect of this is remembering, as you said something earlier, reminded me of just like how children have this extraordinary ability to remember past lives, or if there's some sort of kind of reincarnation experience they're having, to remember these kind of details. And I don't know if that's because the communication channels are clearer or more wide open, or the antenna is more clear. And as we grow older, that gets shut down with all the information about life and what we're learning, clogs up the communication. We see that in a lot of cultures around the world. Maybe not so much, maybe in America, some Western cultures, but because we really don't have any sort of, interest or theories or philosophies of reincarnation or past lives. But the cultures that do, and it's just a normal part of life, that of course this happens, that kids have these experiences. And maybe here in more of the Western cultures in America, it gets shut down as imagination or your imaginary friends or something like that. But there seems to be enough circumstantial evidence and even maybe scientific evidence to show that past lives are some sort of experience we are having, maybe to learn and to grow, and as souls, not unlike maybe going to school for mathematics, and you start in the first grade learning 2 + 2 = 4, and then you learn about subtraction, and and then there are times tables and long division and fractions, and all of a sudden you're in high school learning about algebra and calculus and trigonometry, and then you're getting your master's degree, writing those crazy equations on the chalkboard. It took you multiple years of learning and developing and stacking knowledge on top of knowledge to get that master's degree in mathematics. And if you could see each grade, first grade, second grade, third grade, all the way into high school, all the way into university, if you see each year as a life, then you can see how maybe to learn about love, to learn about compassion and empathy, or wealth and abundance, or some other aspect of life that we may need to learn about, may take multiple lives to even understand something like that.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Now, there is a man that has done recording, Ian Stevenson, Dr. Ian Stevenson, and he is a psychiatrist and researcher, and he's back in Virginia, I believe, and he's published a number of stories about children that have memories, and they're very explicit. They don't, their parents will say, this doesn't make any sense. And there's been some television programs where there have been people interviewed where their children were having nightmares. I remember one story about a mother talking about her son, and he was having nightmares about a plane crashing, and he would talk to her and say, I died in that plane, and he gave all kinds of details, and she said, there's got to be something with this, that my son is just giving all of this information. And to make a more detailed story shorter, she ended up doing research and finding out he even knew his name, gave all kinds of detail and information, and there was nobody in the family that had flown a plane or, had even taken him up in a plane. But he just gave all kinds of information. She just let him talk. She'd ask him a question every now and then. And then she started doing the research, and she actually found the exact story. And he was a little boy. And it said that it was what she found out about her son was absolutely phenomenal. And she said by the time he was about, I think, 6 years old, 5 or 6 years old, then it was not strong. But when they're very young, many times they will remember certain things. And I have a friend whose grandson would talk to his granddad and say, well, I know about this, and I know about that, and I, know about such and such and so and so. And he'd say, oh, really? But he really recognized past life experiences because grandfather had some himself. So this is something where it's so intriguing because this it's outside of what we would typically say is the box of logic. Well, the logic, it's unlimited.
Ian Stevenson,
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say about Ian Stevenson, it was not just books of stories of reincarnation. He was actually the chair of the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Virginia Medical School. And he passed away, I think, in 2006, 2007, something like that. But like during the 60s and 70s and 80s, he would actually go to different countries, mainly in the Middle East and India, and because these countries, again, like these cultures, they had an awareness of reincarnation, but these stories would come to him of children who were having pretty clear information about another life that they lived in, maybe the town over, the city across the state, and he would go there and investigate. And he was known for his research over there. So it wasn't just like telling stories. He'd go in and investigate the stories. He'd go hear the children and the family stories, and then go to the next city and find the family and corroborate the information. And he wrote something like a dozen books or so, and something incredible, like 200, 250 papers on these cases over the decades he was doing this work. So it wasn't just he heard a story and wrote it down. He went and actually met these families, met these children, and asked and did investigative work. about it. And again, so it's like you start stacking one thing on top of the other, and the work of Ian Stevenson, as well as Dr. Michael Newton or Dr. Brian Weiss, and a lot of the others, even the work of Dolores Cannon. And after a while, you just have so much information that it's like, okay, even if only 10% of this is true, this is pretty extraordinary, this information.
It really is. And something I appreciated about your book, Past Lives Guidebook, Craig, I appreciated your bringing up different cultures, because too many times people are not aware of various cultures, very, very old ones, traditions, even rituals that they will use. The Dogon. Now, these are people of Mali, and they are so ancient. There's just so much history that we are becoming aware of because of the technological advancements that we have made. But this is something, whether you're talking about people from Africa or India, Europe, China, history of the Egyptians, the Native Americans of the United States and Canada. There is a depth of information that, for whatever reason in the Western culture, has really been poo-pooed and, suppressed. And it's wonderful that we are able to have access to information that says, wait a minute, you're putting out what you want other people to know about, but you're not giving everybody the real story. You're not giving them the real information. And there is so much that's coming up. And in your book about the Dogon, I mean, they're such an old race. I don't even know that we have any idea when they came about, if you want to use that terminology. That what is important is to be able to listen to people and to find out where, who taught them what, where it came from, but it's all around the world. Yeah. And I think that this is one of the gifts that your book gives. And you go into a section, it's part 2 of your book, that deals with time, consciousness, and memory. And also, someone is going to ask the question, why in the world would you even want to know about past lives? Well, often people have experiences that will cause them to want to investigate. Like you said, they may have this interest that they just don't know why they have it, but they've got to research it. And in the process of researching it, maybe they come across a culture, an environment. And when they go into that environment, it's like their home. They feel comfortable, and they don't know why. And there has been, I think of the case of Bridie Murphy when that book came out. When I found out about it, it was long after it had been published. But boy, did that create a furor, because that book was all about a woman and what happened with her under hypnotherapy. And this is something that can create an answer to why certain people even have allergies, or what is it? Why have you got certain responses to certain environments? You can't even explain it. The inner consciousness, the soul consciousness, I'll call it, has the library. And to be aware of what's in your personal library, I think, is extraordinarily interesting. What was it? What's one of your experiences that you had that was particularly significant to you?
Well, this wasn't my own experience. I actually write about it in the book. In fact, it's probably it's the first line of the introduction. And you're just talking about, allergies and other issues, like physical issues. And there's even been, a lot of research, and even in the Ian Stevenson books we were just talking about children might have a birthmark that, corresponds to maybe somebody having gotten shots in a life that this child seems to be reincarnating as. But people come to me oftentimes because they're hurting and they're in pain and they're dealing with some anxiety or some anger. They've been to talk therapy. They've done the work. They've read the books. and they've done the personal growth and the personal development, and they still hurt. They're still in pain, and they just can't seem to find the reasoning behind it, the way to resolve it. And maybe they read Brian Weiss or Many Lives, Many Masters. Maybe really read Dolores Cannon or somebody else. And it feels comfortable, it feels familiar. It feels like this might be the way to go. And so they end up calling me, and we have a discussion about what they want to work on and how a session could work and help resolve this issue by maybe finding a past life that's causing this feeling state. I want to work with somebody, and in and of itself, we're working on more of a kind of a anxiety issue that she was working on. But we did when we do a past life regression. Yes, we'll do a past life, of course, if somebody lived to be 103 years old. In that past life, we can't go through every hour of that 103 years, so we're going to focus on 4 or 5 different events in that past life that have to do with the issue they want to discover or create healing around. It may be go back to past life that is influencing this anger I'm feeling or anxiety I'm feeling, or just go back to past life that's influencing this current life. It could be as general as that, or go back to past life that was my greatest spiritual life, something like that. So we want to focus on something, kind of have a bullseye to head towards, so we know which book of your life off the shelf we need to look at. And we go through 4 or 5 different events that specifically have to do with the issue they want to resolve or discover. And then we'll move into spirit world. They'll leave that life and move up into spirit form. This is more about the work of Michael Newton in his books Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls, and move up into spirit world, that life between lives, as he calls it. And we always go to the healing place, and whether there's healing that's known that needs to be done, or maybe it's unknown. We just want to make sure there's some cleansing and rejuvenating of the spiritual energy, whatever that means to that person up there in spirit world. And I was working with this person, and while we're doing this past life regression, when you're working one-on-one with somebody, you're actually having a conversation. Even though you're in this kind of trance hypnosis state, accessing your higher self, your wisdom, and these aspects of your past life and spirit world, we're still able to have a conversation. So not only can I help guide and facilitate and move towards healing if need be, but also for the recording, so that later on in the weeks and months ahead, you can re-listen to the recording, read the transcript, gain even more insights to it. Some of these sessions can be 3.5 hours, and it's while you experience it, and you're having these memories. Sort of like watching a 3-hour movie.
Mm-hmm.
A few weeks later, you might not remember every single detail of that 3-hour movie, even though you're consciously aware while watching the movie. So we want a recording. We want to create a transcript out of it so you can review it later and gain even more insights. Well, when we go to the healing place, that's somewhat of a private work that somebody's doing, maybe with their spirit guide, if there are other healing spirit beings there. And so I give some privacy, I encourage and support, but I'm not asking detailed information about what's happening. Well, we move on from the healing place when that aspect of the session is complete, and we move to other places in spirit world. Well, I always follow up in the days afterwards. Maybe I'm just curious myself. I want to see if there's any other insights come up, and I just love hearing about people's experiences. That's why I check in about 4 or 5 days, just send an email seeing how they're doing. And this one where she writes back that 20 years of chronic hip pain is gone. And I didn't even know she had hip pain. She didn't even talk about hip pain. That's not what we were working on. And she had been to the doctors. She's had the MRIs and the x-rays and done the physical therapy. For 20 years, she's tried to find a way out of this chronic hip pain that she had. And she just lived with it. It's just that's the way life is going to be. And so she's doing this past life regression. I have no idea if she's in any sort of pain, any physical pain around her hip. But when she goes to the healing place, one of the things I ask is if you notice any cords connecting you to that past life or any other past life, known or unknown, the negative cords need to be pulled out. And so pull them out yourself, ask the help of your spirit guide, however they need to come out, they need to be pulled out. And that's part of the healing work. Well, there's some private time. She's doing her healing work. It's taking a bit of time. Some people take 10, 15 minutes to do this work. And eventually she said, I'm complete, and we move forward. Well, she emails me and says that she felt this huge cord on her hip. And she tried to pull it out and couldn't pull it out. And so she asked her spirit guide to help her pull it out. And they, the two of them couldn't pull it out. And this is going on for minutes and minutes and minutes. And eventually she asked all the spirit beings there with her in that healing place to help pull out. And they did one of those tug-of-war things where they grab a part of the cord and they start pulling. They pulled it out, and her hip pain had totally disappeared. And she had, when she emailed me, she had been like 4 days without hip pain after 20 years of constant pain. And now that's more of a rare kind of thing that people experience, but it's extraordinary to hear those stories and even help people through that kind of healing work. Now, of course, you can do this work just to discover and for fun and for curiosity and maybe just move forward in your current life. But sometimes there's some deep healing work that needs to be done, and it's extraordinary what can happen.
And there's so many other aspects too. Then you mentioned about that cord attachment, and in the Hawaiian culture, they talk about the cords of attachment and how important it is to cut the cords, or as you described, pull them out so you no longer have the attachment. And it is, again, when you get into different cultures and you find out the language that they use to describe things, that's a common thread throughout every culture that I've ever become aware of. And it is that understanding that when you're given that gift of information about past lives or whatever you've gone through, it brought to mind, as you were speaking, an experience I had with a young woman who was a flight attendant. And she could never wear, it was very common when their uniforms that they had scarves. And the women would, wear the scarves in different formations. And she said she could not put anything around her neck. And I remember sharing with her a past life experience that I said, you were hanged. I don't recall where it was, what the time frame was or anything like that, because this was many years ago. But it stayed in my mind because she contacted me later saying that after the conversation, she had an awareness of what had happened, and she said, I can now wear scarves. So,
wow.
It really is amazing what the information can bring to us. Now, your book, Past Lives Guidebook, The Science and Spirituality of Past Life Regression Therapy. I want those of you listening to know that Craig Meriwether's book is not just about past lives. There is so much more material that he's got in here. Like I said, I think it's like an encyclopedia. The healing power of past life regression is a very real thing. That has been an understanding that I have gained through the years, and I just know that it's something that is very real and can be very useful. Now, not everybody's going to have an interest in that. But we have to remember that if we're wanting to do research on ourselves, which is a good place to start, this is a kind of material that gives you information that you can go and research on your own. And it is not something that is to be feared. It is something that makes you aware that you're much more than you could have ever imagined yourself to be. Now, Craig, you have a website. Actually, you have 2 website listings, and I'm going to give both of them. The shorter one is sacredhypno.com, and hypno is spelled H-Y-P like Paul, N-O.com, sacredhypno.com. That's a short one. And then you have Sacred Mysteries Hypnotherapy.com. Do I have those correct?
Yes. So the name of my business, where I help people with past life regressions, and have their own experience and moving up in the soul world thing. That's Sacred Mystery Hypnotherapy. It's a bit of a mouthful. And so the shorter version to help remember is sacredhypno.com is the abbreviated version.
Well, Craig Meriwether, and Meriwether is spelled Meriwether, Meriwether, Craig Meriwether. That's the spelling of his last name. And Craig, I'm so delighted we've had this conversation.
Me too, yeah.
I just wish you the best with your continuing writing and sharing your knowledge and experience. And I think Past Lives Guidebook is a powerhouse of information. And I'm so glad we've had the time to chat about it. And I wish you the best for the new year.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you wanting me to be on your show and discuss again. There's so many rabbit holes, and it's fun to discuss this. And I appreciate your interest in this, Donna. It was fun chatting with you.
It has been my pleasure. We are saying goodbye to Craig Meriwether, and I want to repeat his websites again, Sacred Mysteries Hypnotherapy.com. The short version is Sacred Hypno, HYPNO.com, sacredhypno.com. We're taking a little bit of a break, and we're going to be back in just a moment. The Donna Seebo Show is heard weekdays, Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 p.m. Pacific Time. Callers are welcome to call in during the second half of the program at 253-582-5597. Please note that the announcement is made at the bottom of the hour if I'm not in studio able to take phone calls. Warriors for Peace is heard every Wednesday from 7 to 8 p.m. For current information regarding my email newsletter, programming, and appearances, go to DelphiInternational.com. For information on publications, including my award-winning children's books, audiobooks, and more, go to MrsSeebo'sClassics.com. This is Donna Seebo. If you or someone you know is an author and would like to be interviewed on the Donna Seebo Show or Warriors for Peace, please send a copy of the publication along with contact information, phone number, email, and website to the Donna Seebo Show, P.O. Box 99015, Lakewood, Washington 98496. That's the Donna Seebo Show, P.O. Box 99015, Lakewood, Washington 98496. Please allow 6 to 8 weeks for review. Thank you. Well, I wanted to share some information with you. I've got a story I wanted to share about my own personal experience with a trucker who was you might say an amateur hypnotist that had, not unlike Craig, gone through his own journey. But before I do that, I want to mention that today we just finished the editing process on the 19th episode of the Donna Seebo television show, Special Editions. Now, I'm hoping to have that up in the new year, in the first week of the new year. I'm going to be sending that off to my webmaster because he takes care of that. And then I'm also going to have the audio of episode 19 available. The reason it's taken so long for us to get this done is the studio that I work with had gotten a new computer program. And when I received the final copy of everything, it was not working well. So the file was fine, but their computer, their new system, and my computer with its system, and everything in between was not connecting well. So we were able to get that all cleared up. So shortly I will be able to let you know about when it is going to be aired, audio-wise, and then also when it's going to be put up on YouTube. So as soon as that is done, it's just really amazing. You know, every time you change something on the computer or you get an upgrade or whatever, and I'm sure you've had the experience, you feel like you're in la-la land because you have to figure out what needs to be done and how to use it and so on and so forth. Well, that's the case. Also, I wanted to remind you that the event that we had planned in December before Christmas in Bellevue here in the state of Washington, that had to be canceled because of the situation that was very critical here in the state of Washington with the atmospheric rivers causing just absolute chaos here. It's just incredible the damage that volume of water that was dumped upon us, what it gave and what it ended up destroying in so many respects. So anyway, we are going to have the event on the 17th and 18th of January, which is just a couple of weeks away. I am going to be a keynote speaker, and I am also going to be a vendor there. And you can go to mewefairs.com, find out more about the event. But there is going to be 2 days of dynamic interaction. The hours on Saturday are 11 until 6, and on Sunday it's 11 until 5. Now, the real special aspect of this is that, and this is my personal bias, is that the hour before the show opens, you're able to attend the psychic showcase that is put on, and you have a chance to ask a question, and there's just so much wonderful interaction that goes on with that. I've been not just a participant, but also I have hosted the morning event before the show opens, and it has just been a joy, and the depth of interaction with the audience is just incredible for not just the attendees, but also for those that are up on the panel itself. My newsletter is going out on the 1st of January. Yes, you'll find it in your email box, and if there are those of you that would like to receive it, all you have to do is go to my website, DelphiInternational.com, and that's DELPHI, international.com. And you'll find that there's a little menu that pops up, and you can put in your email, and I will get that information. We'll add you to the mailing list, because I only do that sending out of information once a month. Now, my assistant, Deb, does do postings on Facebook. So you can find out all about that. Go to my website, get all the details, and she will be letting people know on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and, so many other places. I can hardly keep up with it. And all that information is there. Don't forget about the Authors Showcase, because the links are there directly to their programs. And then when I do a show, because questions have been asked of me about when do I post the interviews that I do. Well, my interviews are usually scheduled, and that's one of the things I put in the newsletter, is the upcoming guests that I have on my show. And sometimes there's empty spaces, but that's just because we haven't coordinated times. So I can get authors on at a particular date, etc., and then I can let you know through this programming and through social media. We keep people informed in that way. And, of course, there's always a calendar listing of upcoming guests. And as we get confirmation from different people in different time zones, of course, people from around the world write materials, and they send me submissions. And, my goodness, I interview over 300 people a year. So it adds up. And this is something that within an hour after I finish my program, then usually, unless I'm interrupted, usually I have everything up and posted in the archives, and then on the player. The latest 13 to 15 hours of programming are on the player. You can just turn the player on and go one show right after the other. And I wanted to let you know, if you're not aware of it, New Year's Eve and New Year's Day Eve, there will be pre-recorded programming. And that is just something that I do because it's a break for me as well. And I know a lot of you are going to be celebrating and just having a wonderful time because we're entering into a brand new year. Now, I wanted to say, if you wanted to call in, we've got 10 minutes for the remaining part of the show. You could do that at 253-582-5597. But I also wanted to share something with you, and it is about a man who talked to his wife once, and he said, you know what? I want to do something special. Now, he was in Cleveland, Ohio, and he had found out about a pay-it-forward kind of a situation that a gentleman by the name of Hal Reckley had been doing, and he had shared what he liked to do with this gentleman, Howard. And Hal ended up passing away unexpectedly. And Howard said, in honor of his friend, Hal, he wanted to do something very, very special. And what they did, they absolutely copied exactly what Hal had told Howard that he was doing. And he would try to find someone who could use some upliftment. That's the word that was expressed by Hal. And he said, I want to gift them with a gift certificate or actual cash. Now, Hal was a veteran, and he ended up dying in the Gulf War. When Howard had found out what Hal had been doing, he told his wife, he said, I want to do something special. He said, I want to do what Hal is doing. So it's a passing forward of a tradition that Hal had done for a long time. And he said, let's go to the airport. He said, there are many times the people that help with luggage, the porters, he said, people are very rude. They don't treat them well. He said, let's go there and let's just observe people. But he said, I want you to help me with this. And his wife was all for it. She said, great. It sounded like a wonderful adventure. She said, what can I do? He said, I want you to talk to the porters. And he said, I want you to get their name and just listen to their stories. Talk to them. Just be who you are. And let's see if you find one that really could use some upliftment. Well, she ended up just paying attention to the different porters, the way they were doing things, how they were doing them, how they were treating customers, how customers were treating them. She was just a good observer. Barbara found an individual, and she chatted with him and found that he had really been having some rough times. And there was a great deal of rudeness that she was seeing on the part of some of the passengers and that were interacting with him. Not everybody, but he seemed to be having sort of a rough time, but she engaged him in conversation. And what ended up happening is that she had to find out his name. She looked to see if he had a badge, but no, he didn't have a badge with his name on it. So she walked up to him and asked him, is your name Joe? And he said, no, ma'am, it's not. He said, my name is Bill. And she said, well, Bill, do you work for a certain airline? And he figured she was a person that was just needing some help or wanting to ask information. And he was so gracious with her. And she said, well, I've got this situation with an airline, and it was at the other end of the airport that he had no association with at all. And she said, well, I really would like to find Joe, since you're not Joe. How could I find out about him? So he really, really was just so gracious with her. And he just felt so good about interacting with someone that was nice to him. And he asked her, he said, may I ask your name? And so she said, oh, sure, my name is Barbara. And he was just so very, very pleasant to her. Well, she said, she went back to her husband. She said, I found him. She said, this is his name, and he works for a particular airline. And Howard actually had a gift certificate with him, and he wrote out the porter's name. And then her husband said, I want you to wait for me, and he took off. He found Bill and wanted to know if he was a certain man, and he said, I want you to know that this is a gift for you from a man who is not with us any longer. And he had been at this airport, and he wanted to thank you for being so thoughtful and so wonderful with him because he was so loaded with luggage. My friend's name was Hal. And he said, I've been sent by him to give you this gift. And he said, I don't remember the man, but this was Bill's response. I don't remember the man, but I remember the bags. Howard disappears. Totally incognito. He would never, ever see Bill again. But what it was all about was making a difference in a person's life. And sometimes we can make that difference. We may not be in a position to hand somebody a check or a gift certificate. Sometimes it's giving a helping hand. And one of the things that I find that's so amazing is that when someone develops a habit, like Hal had developed a habit that he shared with his friend Howard, Howard passed it along. And I can remember someone doing something very special for me many years ago, and I couldn't in any way reciprocate. And the person said to me, Donna, don't even worry about that. When the time comes for you to assist or to help someone, just pass it forward. Now, there's so many people that have done exactly that. Thoughtfulness, kindness, courtesy, being respectful of other people is something that doesn't cost you anything, and it can make such a big difference in a person's life. That porter, Bill, I bet you he often wondered about that person that he did not remember, which of course didn't even exist, but he remembered Howard, not even connecting with the fact that Barbara had been the interrogator to get the information so that he could be acknowledged and appreciated. Ah, that's a wonderful story. Well, I've got a whole bunch, and I know that we're just about out of time. But we're closing out a year that has been for so many. Oh, my goodness, I think of even right now, the weather, the blizzards, the accidents that are going on. There's so much in this world that around the globe, not just here in the United States, but around the globe, people are going through all kinds of challenges. And the important thing is to remember, wherever you are, whatever your life experience is, in this moment, maybe in the past, you have this moment of now. Be aware that you can take into this new year that you're going to be celebrating tomorrow evening, along with literally billions of other people around this planet, welcoming in a brand new year. It is a year of opportunities, a year of learning about yourself, a year of expanding into the understanding that at times it feels like we might be in an apocalyptic situation, but remember, you can make a difference by the way you think, by the way you act, by your willingness to grow and to learn. I don't care what your age is. I really don't care. What is important is now. We can always go into the past and learn from the past, but let's take care of now. Remember always, you're the master of your fate. You are the captain of your soul. God bless, be well. I'll be back with you on Friday. Actually, Thursday. Well, no, Friday. It's going to be Friday. So have a wonderful New Year's Eve. Be safe, be happy, enjoy, celebrate life. And the same with New Year's Day and that evening as well. God bless, be well, and I'll be chatting with you back in studio on Friday.
You've been listening to The Donna Seebo Show. We're delighted that you were able to join us and invite you to tell your friends and family about the program. Have a wonderful day.